Welcome to Discernment Now. My name is Rich Van Every. I'm here with Kevin Anthony, and we would love to discuss the art of discernment with you, which is a never-ending journey for all of us. So let us begin, shall we?
I think we probably should have renamed this show Clown World.
Oh, yeah. How to decipher the clown world and not lose your sanity.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the subtitle. So anyhow, we have, no shortage of great topics for you today after a long break. So thank you for tuning in and welcome back.
Yeah. Today we're going to start with the debt ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are aware that there was a problem with the debt ceiling, which, if you don't understand what the debt ceiling is, basically there is a law that says the debt can't go past a certain amount. Laws like that don't really do a whole lot of good when all you have to do when you reach that amount is simply renegotiate the law and raise it some more, which is what has been happening for decades in both parties. So this is not just a Biden thing. This has happened many, many times before.
Yes.
Now, Trump a while back said, hey, you know what? You might as well default now, because if you don't default now, you're just going to default later and it's going to be worse later.
All right.
Everybody said he was a lunatic for saying that.
Yeah.
But the reality is he's correct.
Yeah.
So every time we increase the debt ceiling, all we do is kick the can down the road a little bit and make future generations' lives even worse.
Right.
So you may have also heard, and this is kind of what we wanted to talk about today, which is that they came to an agreement. Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the Biden administration came to an agreement on the debt ceiling. So there's some interesting things to share about that, because the media was making it seem like this was great.
Yeah.
First of all, the first thing that they were running around saying is that this is amazing because now the U.S. isn't going to default. Okay, but that's not necessarily a good thing. Would that cause short-term pain? Absolutely it would. Mm-hmm. But would that help us in the long run? Yes, it would. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing the media was saying that's just complete rubbish, which is, oh, this is so great. Yeah. No, it's not great.
No
the second thing is they're making it seem like the package that was agreed upon was some amazing package and what a great bipartisan deal and yada, yada, yada. It's garbage. It's complete garbage. So when you read it, they'll say, oh, look, they came to an agreement to reduce the budget by $1.3 trillion. Wow, that's amazing. Oh, but wait a minute. Let's read the details on that. First of all, that's $1.3 trillion over 10 years. Divide 1.3 by 10. How much are they actually reducing it each year? A much smaller amount. But okay, it's still a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
So let's just think about, at least we're getting something. At least we're saving something. Well, let me find you this next piece from this article, which is really great, which is right here. While the spending reductions are substantial, they pale in comparison to total federal spending of about $6.4 trillion this year. They want to reduce it 1.3 over 10 years. But this year, spending is $6.4 trillion and more than $80 trillion over the next decade. So you realize when you hear a number like 1.3 trillion, you think it's huge.
Yeah, it is.
But when you realize we spend 6.4 billion a year and they want to reduce it 1.3 over 10 years, it's really not that much money. So as they say here, and I'm reading some facts from the Tax Foundation, so taxfoundation.org, who analyzed this. And basically what they're saying, to bring spending closer into alignment with historic norms would require spending cuts several times larger than those proposed in the deal. To stabilize the debt as a share of the economy would require about $8 trillion in deficit reduction over the next 10 years. $8 trillion, not $1.3 trillion.
Wow.
And that hold on, that is just to bring it in alignment with previous year's spending, which was already too much spending.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on
Yeah, this is like, I mean, talk about the use of statistics in a fraudulent manner, right? I mean, this is not new, but it's so important to be aware that they will do these spins on numbers, and they will.
Do you remember when Bill Gates was giving one of his little televised speeches, and he was sitting in his whatever his little living room was or whatever, and on the little table next to him he had a stack of books, and somebody zoomed in on the stack of books, and one of the books was literally titled "How to Lie with Statistics."
Yeah. This is one of their tools, y'all. So just know that and understand that. I mean, we have really spent as a nation more money in the last several years than all years combined. Well, I mean, it is, and it's all for Ukraine. So, God bless the people of Ukraine that have been, put out to dry per se, or out to die. But we have our own issues here in the States, and it seems like it would be a huge wake-up call for a lot of people to be like, wait, why is so much focus on Ukraine? Why are we spending so much money there?
That's one piece. That's one place we're spending a bunch of money. But the reason why we're spending a bunch of money in Ukraine has nothing to do with helping the Ukrainians. It's because we have bioweapons labs, and we're laundering, corrupt politicians are laundering money through Ukraine into their own pockets. That's why we're spending a bunch of money there. But the real issue that I want to talk about when it comes to debt ceiling is that it's a spending problem. If you don't address the massive amount of spending that the government does, you will never solve the problem, ever.
Which I think is part of the agenda, right? I mean, really, they want to completely just drive the train right into the wall and watch it blow up so they can usher in their digital currency slave system.
There's two possibilities. One possibility is that they literally deliberately want to crash the system so that they can reset it, right? The Great Reset, and institute a whole new currency, which is going to be a central bank digital currency. That's one theory, and it's definitely a strong possibility. But another one, even if you don't really believe in conspiracy theories, that maybe is a little bit more palatable for you to handle, is the fact that they're politicians, and politicians need to get elected. And the reason why nobody will cut spending is because to cut spending means cutting programs, which means constituents are going to be mad. Now, I blame this partially on the constituents, meaning you all, right? Everybody, the people. Why? Because you expect the government to give you all this stuff, but they don't have any money to actually do it, right? So where do you think it's going to come from? You see, the politicians know that if they touch certain programs, this is why nobody will do anything to help Social Security. They will not do what is necessary to fix Social Security because they know it's going to mean cuts, and there's no avoiding that. And people are going to be pissed. People who worked their whole lives and paid money into that system are going to be really angry when it turns out they don't get the money they were promised. And rightfully so. However, that pyramid scheme can't continue unless they actually fix it. And no politician will fix it because nobody will ever vote for them if they do. You're talking about the same thing here with a lot of the other spending. Cutting any of those other programs is going to mean people are going to be mad. So no politician will touch the spending with a 10-foot pole. Let's also mention the fact that many of these programs include massive spending for everybody's little pet projects. So you're, a senator or representative in a particular state. Your constituents want this particular contract because it'll bring money into the state. You're probably getting a kickback from it because, let's face it, they're almost all corrupt. It's true. So there's all this old-fashioned grift going on as well, right? So there's fear of not getting elected, there's old-fashioned grift, and then there's the possibility that on an even higher level above that, they want to intentionally crash the system so that they can institute their own central bank digital currencies, their quote-unquote Great Reset. So these are all reasons why nobody will ever address the real problem, which is we spend more money than we make. Imagine if you, at home, let's say you made $50,000 a year, but you spent $100,000 a year or $150,000 a year. Could you get away with that? And how long do you think you could get away with that? Right? Well, the federal government's been getting away with it for decades.
Yeah. Thanks to the Treasury, right, and the Federal Reserve, which is not federal or a reserve of sorts.
That's a whole other story.
Debt based system that
It's
is
a debt-based slavery system is
yeah,
what it is.
yeah, absolutely. So this, I think, just brings me into the thought of like, not, it's not what what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, in the beloved words of John F. Kennedy. But what are the potential solutions here? Because this seems to be such a big problem. I mean, we're just looking at the surface of what we can know from the outside, and so I keep thinking use cash, shop local, and prepare for stormy times ahead. I mean, is that enough, or what else can we be doing? Obviously, get more involved in your local politics.
To protect yourself, live below your means, right? Don't have a lot of debt. Don't leave yourself open and vulnerable for a system collapse. That's about the best you can do. We all know voting is not changing anything. They constantly channel our discontent into voting. They say, okay, you're not happy with the way things are, then make sure you vote differently. Yeah. And then we vote differently and nothing changes, right? That's kind of how they manage the discontent. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that voting is necessarily going to change anything, because it hasn't.
Right.
But you can get involved in politics yourself. That's a good grassroots way to do it.
And maybe one day voting will go back to in-person paper ballots, locally driven and monitored only. Then there might be a chance in hell, but that's probably going to be part of
someday we'll see
revolution of some sort.
What needs to be done to fix the elections is a whole show in and of itself.
Yes, indeed.
So the best thing you can do is demand that your government reduce spending. They have to reduce spending. And I'm sorry, but that's going to mean some of the programs and things that you love are going to have to be cut. And there's just no other way around it. You can't kick this can down the road forever.
Yeah, and talk about it. Just the first step of solving any problem is addressing it as a problem. And this is the first step that I think most people are unable or unwilling to take, because it is quite overwhelming and we are very busy and there's a lot going on in this world. But this is one of the, I think, critical issues as well, that, just if you can bring it up with your friends, neighbors, and then at least it's in the public consciousness a little bit more, and people are aware that it's one of those things that hopefully we'll find a solution for one day.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's the optimist in me, but I exercise my realist all the time. So, even what you're proposing seems to be a little bit of a, like, how are we going to get our government to do something if we're not voting?
We need to systematically change the government. So that's a whole much bigger topic. But that's what really needs to happen.
Stay tuned for that.
So
exciting.
Let's move on to our next topic, which is how many people have seen Matt Walsh's "What Is a Woman" documentary?
Ooh, good job, Matt.
I saw this. My wife and I both watched it, and we both loved it. We thought it was absolutely great, in that it really, really did a good job of pointing out the hypocrisy of the other side of the spectrum. Right. But that's not what we're talking about here today. What we're talking about here today is the fact that Twitter, which once banned What Is a Woman, actually allowed it to be live streamed on the platform, and it got a lot of views. It also, apparently, I saw a story, and I couldn't find it before the show when we were looking for it, but I did see a story last night that said a couple of Twitter employees quit over that.
Oh, good for them.
Great.
Yeah, move on. Yeah,
but there's one other interesting fact about this, and then I want to tell you why I wanted to talk about this, which is What Is a Woman also reached #1 on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's impressive.
So why do I bring this up? Does anybody really care about whether or not What Is a Woman is successful?
I do.
Well, most people probably don't. Mm-hmm. But the reason I point this out is because we are constantly told that people who believe in actual biology are the minority, and that the majority of people do not believe that there are only two genders.
Oh my.
And that the majority of people are behind the LGBTQ plus movement. And when I see things like, Twitter broadcasting this, it getting tons of views, it going to #1 on Rotten Tomatoes, that tells me that narrative simply isn't true. Mm-hmm. And this goes for a lot of other topics as well, but I'm just using this as one example because it's something current that just happened. They want you to believe that you are the minority.
Yeah.
And by you, I mean people who are thinking clearly,
Yes.
who, believe in freedom, believe in
we're
liberty.
more divided, and we're more divided than we actually are as well. I mean, we are quite divided in some respects, but in general.
But they want you to think that your viewpoint is the minority, and that you're old and you're outdated, and most people are like, we're so much more progressive than you are, right? But the reality is that's not true. And we see it over and over again. And I'm going to jump down to another story that's related to this, which is Bud Light has lost $27 billion over the Dylan Mulvaney scandal.
Say it's not true. Wow, it makes me want to have a beer of a different brand. But that's impressive.
And I didn't even look up the stats for Target.
Oh my goodness.
But when you see these things happening, it's a clear sign that the majority of the people do not buy into the woke nonsense.
Yeah, it's
they
really
just
bad.
don't.
It's called social engineering, people, and it's not for your good or their good or anyone's good.
Yeah, and it's a small group of people who have control over the media, who just repeat these things over and over and over again. And I think it's changing now, but I think a lot of the people who are actually in the majority have often believed they were in the minority and were afraid to speak up. But I do not believe that is the case with what I see with these numbers. So Bud Light, Target, both paying big time for their decisions.
And I know Chick-fil-A started getting a little bit of heat too, which was interesting because apparently it was from back during the George Floyd incident. They had been forced to say something about inclusion and apologize to black people, do that whole cultural reparation nonsense, and so that was funny because it started coming out. I mean, that's a Christian-based company, but obviously not all companies are jumping on board, but the ones that do, I hope they really suffer. I hope they really see that this is not going to last and it's not going to work, even though they will be relentless in continuing to push these ideological agendas.
Some of these companies are doing it because they're fully on board with the agenda. Some of these companies are doing it because they're being pressured into it through this ESG, environmental social governance framework that the World Economic Forum is pushing on everybody. So some of these companies feel like they don't have any choice because they have to meet these ESG goals.
We got to do without that. That's really a bad program.
However, if you don't want companies to do that, now obviously the ones that are fully behind the agenda, that are owned by the people pushing the agenda, they're not going to change. But the other ones that are getting strong-armed into changing, if enough consumers say, we're simply not going to support you if you do this, they will all fight back and they will pull out of this ESG nonsense. So you want to talk about voting, vote with your wallet.
That's right.
That's the only thing people understand.
And
money.
And we have no affiliation yet. Public Square is an incredible app and platform by which you can support businesses that are in the stance of freedom and not woke ideologies. So look them up if you don't know them already and support the businesses that are on that platform, because this is part of the way forward.
And just support businesses that hold the same values that you do and stick with those values. Okay, a couple of other interesting things to talk about.
Let's do it.
So you may or may not have heard of this, but the FBI has been sitting on a document for quite some time that actually proves that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden were running an international influence peddling scheme. So this document apparently, from what we understand, proves that this scheme actually... Now, look, there's a ton of other proof. We already know this. We have the Hunter Biden laptop. Everybody now has admitted that that is real. Everybody. The FBI has also been sitting on that laptop information since 2019. We have testimony from business associates of the Bidens. We have a ton of evidence to prove this. However, this memo apparently is quite damning, and they've been withholding it, even though they have been asked multiple times to turn this over to the House, and they won't do it. But apparently now they are threatening to hold Christopher Wray in contempt if he does not turn this document over. So this is going to be a very interesting one to watch. Does he turn it over? When he turns it over, is it massively redacted, or can we actually see what's in it? Apparently, he then only wanted to turn it over to certain members within the House and not the full committee, and so they're pushing back on that as well. So it will be very interesting to see how that unfolds, and it's definitely something worth watching, because we know that this influence peddling operation was happening.
Mm-hmm.
What we want is to see some justice.
Yes.
And don't hold your breath. I'm not saying you'll get it even if he turns over the document, but it's just something to keep an eye on. And so, this show isn't just about reporting the current news, it's also about discernment, right? So why do we bring up the fact that they have this document? Well, because for years now, you've been lied to and you've been told that this was a conspiracy theory. And now we find out that the FBI actually has proof of it.
Yeah.
So, right? Discernment again. Now, of course, we've been telling you for years that this was true and happening. But...
yeah. Hey, it's not about being right. It's not necessarily about believing that you have all the information or facts in order to compile any level of certainty, yet this act of exercising discernment is ultimately one of the essential pieces in order for us, the 3% or whatever it might be, to move forward and create new systems in the future that will then work for the betterment of all. So, I think that this is fascinating. And what about the laptop? Because apparently all the laptop contents, or at least some of them, were put online. Did you hear that they actually released the laptop contents?
I have not seen that online. I know that Congress has it. I know the FBI has it. I know certain people like Rudy Giuliani and others have it.
Yeah.
It's been entered into the congressional record, but I haven't seen that it was actually
I heard it
published
was made public somewhere, and I just didn't jump right on it because, I've heard there's things on there that you just wouldn't want to see. But
I'm sure there are, but there's also going to be classified information in there. So I would suggest that even if it is available online, that you don't download it, because if you then take possession of it, now you have possession of classified information, and that would be a problem.
Could be a trap.
Could be a trap. All right, let's move on to our next story. It's a trap.
It's a trap.
we got to edit in that scene from Star Wars. It's a trap. Okay, the next one is a COVID outbreak at the CDC's 2023 annual Epidemic Intelligence Service Conference.
Say it's not true.
So the CDC actually had their annual conference, the Epidemic Intelligence Service Conference.
So sophisticated.
So this is a conference of all CDC people.
Yeah.
All people who've been screaming at you for several years now to get your vaccinations.
Yeah, wearing full body suits when then telling you can just wear a little diaper over your face and you'll be fine.
All people who have told you it's safe and effective.
100%.
Yeah.
And then it was 80%, and then it was 50%, and then it was 0%.
So there was an outbreak at this conference, and after conducting a survey, the CDC discovered that a full 12% of the attendees contracted COVID during the event. Okay, well, 12%, that's a fairly high number.
They developed COVID symptoms more accurately, I would say. But they're not saying that, but that's okay.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other thing.
And it could be the shedding, which is through exosomes, not actual viruses.
But here's the important part of the story.
In my belief.
Out of the 181 confirmed COVID cases, 100% of the people were vaccinated. All of the people who contracted COVID had already received their COVID vaccines.
Wow. So in a sense, they're walking bioweapons. They're merging their different mutations and just somehow starting to feel like they have radiation poisoning. I don't know.
Well, it's
interesting.
The real thing here is this. They told you that it was 100% safe and effective.
Mm-hmm.
We already know it's not safe. We have literally millions of documented adverse reactions. So we know it's not safe. But we also know it's not effective.
Mm-hmm.
And we have tons of data behind that too. So here's the discernment part. Do not believe them when they tell you this nonsense. They couldn't possibly have even known it was 100% safe and effective because they never tested it.
Yeah.
They never tested it.
All the ferrets died. Well, they just said it
Well,
on some ferrets, I think, and they all died.
But that was not even testing COVID vaccines.
That's
that was
true.
testing the mRNA technology itself. When they did the original tests on that technology, all of the lab animals died as a result.
Mm-hmm. And it's technically not a vaccine, but they changed the definition.
Well,
it's gene therapy.
That's a whole other thing too. But
yeah, just to be clear, we know what's up a little bit here.
So the discernment piece is do not trust them ever when they say this stuff. I have been following the CDC for at least 25 years on a range of different things. And I can honestly tell you they are one of the most corrupt government agencies in existence. Nothing they tell you is 100% true, and most of it is generally the opposite of whatever they tell you. So if we ever find ourselves in a situation like this again, do not believe a word they say.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're warning us that the next outbreak is going to be way more deadly. So in that case, yeah, we'll just have to see. But, take care of your health, boost your immune system, and hopefully we're not wearing masks for the sake of trying to limit the spread for 2 weeks only.
What are we up to now? About 25 peer-reviewed studies that show that masks don't work. Subject for another day.
Yeah.
All right, we got one last story to talk about today.
Closing in.
And all right, this may sound a little mean, but I saved this one for last because it's the funniest story of them all. And the story is Joe Biden falls again.
Oh no, Joe!
Falls again.
How could you do it, Joe? On TV in front of a bunch of Navy cadets?
I think it was an Air Force Academy.
Air Force cadets. I'm so sorry, Joe. I'm glad you didn't get hurt, but you needed help up. So
here's the thing,
your Secret Service was right there to help you.
Somebody said in social media in a comment, they were like, this isn't funny. This is really sad, and this constitutes elder abuse, is what they had said. And I say that I saved this for last because it's funny. It's not funny that Joe Biden fell. It's not funny that an old person who is obviously suffering from dementia is falling down. Like, he could get seriously hurt. But I put this on here because, again, you got to think critically. We have an election coming up. We have a man who's saying that he absolutely is going to run for president again. You have to honestly, whether you love Biden and think he's great or hate Biden and think he's absolutely terrible, the fact is the man is not fit for the office. He literally is not physically or mentally fit. And that's the discernment piece I want you to get out of this.
Yeah.
How many times do we have to watch him fall down, mumble his words and spit out incoherent sentences and call people by the wrong names and trip over everything he tries to say?
Yeah.
He's not fit, regardless of what you think of him.
And I don't even think he's Joe. He might be he might be a Biden. But unfortunately, I mean, it looks staged to me. The fact that he just kind of, soon as he turned, went to walk, there was a cable on the ground, but it wasn't sticking up. I don't know what he tripped on. He just fell immediately. It was just like, I don't know. Are they trying to make him look like an imbecile? Do they want Kamala in place? I don't know. But I'm just telling you, it was all fishy and stinky and weird to me. And it's just like part of the whole saga of him falling on the bike, falling on the Air Force One stairs. I mean, just how many times does he need to fall?
Well, if they keep putting him out there, he'll keep falling down. But
it's like,
but I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think that it was staged. I don't think they have anything to benefit from that. If they really wanted to put Harris in there, one could have done it already.
Yeah.
Two, it would be a smarter move for Joe to say, okay, I'm stepping down, but Kamala, who's been right here with me doing all this great stuff, is the person I endorse. Like they could be building her up for 2 years to be the next thing, the next greatest
She
president.
can't even put a sentence together.
But notice they haven't done that.
Right.
They haven't done that at all. Like, she's basically been like Joe Biden hiding in the basement. We don't even know where she's been for the last 2 years.
Yeah,
right?
she cackles like a crazy lady.
Well, she rarely ever comes out and does anything. And the few times that she does, she pretty much opens her mouth and inserts her foot because she says something so stupid. You're just like shaking your head. So I don't feel it was staged. I just feel like what you got to get out of it is this guy is not fit for the office. This is one of the most stressful jobs in existence on planet Earth. And this guy can't even walk across the stage, can't even read off a teleprompter.
Well, one of my comments on social media was, this is a distraction. This is pathetic, and we shouldn't even be talking about it, honestly. I mean, it is something because it's the president, but to me, I find it a little annoying and senseless, and just kind of almost like reality TV drama. It's just like it's almost like, okay, no.
Yeah, but we need to talk about it because there are a significant number of people, probably not ones watching this show. However, maybe there are some. There's a significant number of people who would actually vote for him again.
Yeah, it's
and
pathetic.
So it needs to be talked about that this man is simply not fit for the office.
Yeah. We got better candidates in the pipe, so let's see what happens.
Well, that's all the stories I had for this episode.
Yeah, that was a lot. I think we did good. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a beautiful rest of your week.